Hello friends, in this video I am going to explain about the asynchronous database execution. What is meant by the asynchronous? If any request is no need to wait for the response, then that request we call it as a asynchronous request. And it is vice versa. If the request is waiting for the response, then that is called it as a synchronous request. For example, let me show you when I am opening my Gmail application. For example, I will show you a real-time example. I will show you. For example, when I hit gmail.com, okay. So here, after login, etc., Gmail page will be loading automatically. After login successfully, you will get some inbox page. Correct? I will show you just 1 minute. So mail.google.com. Okay, the entire page is loading. Now here loading, see in the left hand side, charts will loaded after some time. Sometimes charts will be loaded after some time. Why? Why? Because the entire page will not be halted. This entire Gmail pages will not be halted until the charts are loaded. As usually, the page will continuously loaded, but internally send one more request to one more server or etc. to load the charts. That is nothing but an asynchronous. If the entire page is halted to get the response of all the requests, then that would be a synchronous request. So just this is one of the just this is the one of the example also. Okay, even you could have seen this such an examples in so many real-time applications. So when the entire web page is loading, some requests are internally communicating with other applications to load the data, but it will take some time. Meanwhile, the remaining portion of the web page is already loaded. It will take some time, it's 1 second or 2 seconds. Then once the response come back to the your application, that content will be loaded. So this is the just example of asynchronous request. Similarly, I will implement in my Pega activity how I can implement the asynchronous. So let me show you with one example. For example, I have my activity logic. Okay. So for example, in my activity, step one logic, step two, another logic, etc. Now I want to get the data from some PayPal or any external system. Okay. Now after that, as usually, next step 4 and step 5. This is as usually my activity continuation logic. Now, in the regular scenario, if I want to fetch the data from the PayPal external system, obviously it will take some time because that is not in your server. You have to communicate to the external system. You have to load the data, get the data. If the request is halted, if your activity execution is halted, then that would be a synchronous request. If the activity execution is not halted, that would be a asynchronous request. That means that is how you can implement it. Now what I'm going to do, if the request is sent to the PayPal system, the activity execution should be halted until you get the response from the PayPal data or PayPal website. Then it will go to the next step 4. But this is regular synchronous request. But in asynchronous request, okay, the request will be sent to the PayPal. That's it. Your activity execution will continue further as usually. It's no need to wait for the previous request response. This is nothing but a asynchronous request. The next question, then who will execute this request then? If my activity If my activity execution is not halted, who will execute this request? Who will execute this request? So here in Pega, in Pega, Pega will allocate or Pega will create a separate requester. Pega will create a separate requester to execute this process or to execute this request. Pega will create a separate requester to execute this request. So that is nothing but a one child requester will be allocated by the Pega to process this request. And the main requester as usually available to execute this activity. So we will show you sorry I will show you this implementation in activity. In activity, how can we load the data page in asynchronous mode? We have a one step method called it as a load data page. Using this step method, I can call a data page in asynchronous mode. I will show you this in my activity. As usually I have a test activity, page new. Just I'm giving I page. Okay, this is insurance claim. Okay, next one, another page new. C page. This is fine. Now here I want to fetch the countries list. I want to load the countries list or I want to fetch the countries list. Okay, so assuming countries are present in some external system, countries data are present in external system. So I have a one data page. I have a one data page d underscore country list. See, this is my data page d underscore country list. This is my data page d underscore country list. Okay, read only page list because it contains more than one value, and the source is one report definition, etc. And load management is this one. It's not reload once per interaction, there is no refresh strategy, etc. And there is no parameters also, there is no parameters, etc. This is my data page. This what this data page will do. This data page will load the countries list. Now I am using, as I told you, how do you how do you execute or send a request to the data page in asynchronous mode? How do you send a request to execute a data page in asynchronous mode? We have a one method called it as a load data page. Load data page. Fine. What is the parameters here? For load data page, you must pass the data page name. I will come to pool id later. D underscore country list. Fine. Now what this load data page will do, I will explain. Next, as usually, here I want to use the here I want to use the this data page data. I want to use this data page data. For example, if the data page is loaded, then I want to use this data. Property set. Property set. Okay, just for example, leave it this part. Leave it this part. Time being, leave it this part. Next, as usually, page remove. C page. That's it. Now save. Now run this activity. Run this activity. So when you run this activity in a standard thread, Pega will run this activity under the specific requester. Under this specific requester, just click on trace, click on trace. Now, before execute an activity, I just want to show you, go to admin studio, here actions, refresh, see this one, async declarative pool. Async declarative pool, I will explain this also later. Clear requester pools, that's it. Now go back to dev studio. Now as usually I am going to run this activity. Okay, I'm going to run this activity. Just click on run. So if you want to trace or debug the asynchronous data pages execution, in the tracer setting, in the tracer setting, you must enable these: ADP load, asynchronous data page load, asynchronous activity, asynchronous activity, and here data pages. You must enable these event types to trace. Don't forget. Just click on cancel as usually. Now you can run. Okay, see this one, activity begin, page new, step begin, step end, page new, step begin, step end. Now load data page, load data page. See this one, data page queued for load. Queued means that is not in your control. Queued means that is not in your control. Okay, you just one request is sent, that will be processed by the someone, that will be processed by the someone. So what your activity did here, your activity queued this data page, your activity is queued this data page. So in the symbolic representation, I am not responsible to execute this data page. I am not responsible to execute or to load this data page. Okay, that's why data page queued for load. Now here see this one, ADP load. As I told you, Pega will allocate a separate requester to execute this data page, to load this data page. Just if you want, just click on this ADP load. See here, what is the requester ID here? AQ3E so and so. Here, what is the requester? HFV444E etc. That means this is your main requester and this is your child requester. So Pega will allocate this child requester to execute the data page in asynchronous mode. Why? Because here the data page is queued. The data page is queued for load. Queuing means even in the agents also queue for agent, right? Where you can push one entry to process by the agent in a standard agents or in the queue processor. Similarly, queue data page queued for load, that will be taken care of by the other requester. That other requester will be allocated by the Pega. That other requester will be allocated by the Pega. Okay. Now, if you want, you just come back to your admin studio. Now you can see here service package, there is some async declarative tool. See this one, async declarative tool. One requester is allocated by the Pega. One requester is allocated by the Pega. That is called it as ideal requester. That means data page execution is completed. Then obviously if the data page execution is completed, the requester will be ideal always. The requester will be ideal. So what are the maximum number of requesters? Just click on here, view more details. Maximum active configured is 50, maximum ideal I can keep it as 10, maximum weight is 10. Currently ideal is 1, most ideal is 1, most active is 1. That means parallelly, even if you can load the data page 50 times, I mean you can load 50 data pages in the asynchronous mode simultaneously, because maximum active requesters should be 50, maximum active 50. So there would be 51 is came. That means again you can use the load data page in 51th time. So that means 51th data page you want to load it in asynchronously. Maximum ideal requests, sorry, maximum active requests are here is 50, right? Then there is no requester available to execute your data page in asynchronous mode. What Pega will do? Pega will continue to execute that in the synchronous mode. Pega will continue to execute your synchronous mode. That means what is meant by the synchronous mode? Your main requester, right? Your main requester will continue to execute that data page. Remember this point. If the requesters are not sufficient, maximum is active is 50. If the requesters are not sufficient, those asynchronous requests will be executed as a synchronous request, because there is no requesters are available. If the requesters are available, then that is okay. So here ideal is 1 means already when you load a database method is configured, Pega immediately will allocate a one requester. That one requester is in active state during your database execution. Once the database execution is completed, then it will come to the ideal requesters. Ideal means sit silently. Sit silently. Next time if one more requester, one more database execution is came, for example, sorry, not only database execution, one more asynchronous request is came, then the ideal requester will be active, then started execution and sit silently, etc. Okay, now come back to your dev studio. If you want, you can just open this async declarative pool. This is nothing but a pool. Here you can increase the pool size as well. Here you can increase the pool size as well. You can increase the active requesters, you can increase the maximum wait time, you can increase the maximum ideal requesters. It's a regular service package only. Okay, now I hope you understand this asynchronous database execution. See, a separate requester is allocated to load the database. As usually, database execution will be called from the step 1. See, this one database load is begin, and the database load is end, etc. That's it. Okay, fine. Close, leave. Now I want to just make a one simple change. Now, before making the change, just clear this data page. I don't want to keep it in a memory again. Otherwise, you will confuse whether the data page is loaded or it will get it from memory. Now, come back to your main activity. Now, here what I am doing is I don't want to load the data page like this. I just mentioned d underscore country list. Just click on save. Just click on save. Close. I just want to run this activity execution again. Pass actions, run, trace, click on run, activity success. Okay, one second, one second. Loaded asynchronously, data page instance is found, but not this one, leave it. So what I want to show you is, I want to remove this step. Here, I'm just using property set param dot country name equal to d underscore country list dot px results of one dot country name. That's it. See, now I am using the database like this. I am using the database like this instead of load data page. Now clear the database from the cache. I mean, flush the database, close. Now again, I want to run this activity. Now what I am doing, d underscore country list dot px results of first country name. I want to set it to the parameter action run trace. Just click on run. See this one. Now tell me, your data page is executed in the synchronously or asynchronously? Your data page is executed in synchronously or asynchronously. See this one, page new, third step property set, data page load begin, loading in thread scope, then started this data page execution, data page load end, property set, that's it. Now in this mode, the data page was executed synchronously. Because your main requester is continue, your main requester is executed step by step, your main requester should be halted, your main requester should be halted until the data page execution is completed, then only it will go to the step number 4, then only it will go to the step number 4. In the previous case, okay, just it queued the data page, then it will continue to the next step in the previous execution, in the previous execution. I hope you understand the difference between the load data page method and calling the data page like this. See, you people are assuming that I'm just calling the data page. The behavior is internal behavior is completely different. That's why use the data page wisely and properly. So d underscore country list, now here it is calling in the synchronous mode. I will make one more change. I will make one more change because till now I did not explain the real point. That's why I'm making one more change. Okay. I want to halt the tracer because now this is synchronous mode. Again, I want to use the load data page method. Load data page d underscore country list. Okay. I'll come to pool ID later. Say before that, as usually, just clear the data page. Just why? Because why I am flushing this data page means you will be confused. Sometimes if the data page is already in the memory, then it will not load it again, why? Because there is no reload once per interaction is enabled. Okay, keep it in mind. Close. In the interview point of view, they will ask you how the asynchronous data page execution will be happened. Just you simply said, okay, load data page. By using the load data page, we can load the data page asynchronously. That is okay. But how? See, now, as usually, step number 1, step number 2, step number 3, I want to load the data page in asynchronously. Now again, I want to use the data page results. I want to use the data page result because in the step number 3 already loaded. At step number 4, I want to use the loaded data page results. At step number 5, save. Now just click on save and I clear the data page. Again, just close, run an activity, action, run, trace, just click on run. Why here the data page is loaded synchronously? Try to understand, come down, as usually, page new, page new, load data page, data page queued for load. Data page is queued for load at step number 3. At step number 3. Data page is queued for load at step number 3. Just click on this one. Queuing for asynchronous data page load. Okay. Queuing for asynchronous data page load. As usually, you just click on this one. That means at step number 3, your main requester, it's not halted to load or wait for the data page. Just it queued the data page. Okay, it will go to the next step 4. It will go to the next step 4 at step number 4. Now, if you want, you can just click on ADP load, a separate requester here as usually. Okay, I hope you understand. Now at step number 3 completed, queued the data page. At step number 4, why it is saying loaded synchronously? Why it is loading the data page again synchronously? Why? Because this is the important point we need to understand. What you mentioned in step number 4, d underscore country list, but sir, here at step number 3 we already loaded the data page. Who said the data page is loaded in the memory? If the data page is present, then you can use the data page. If the data page is not present in the clipboard, then Pega will do, it will load the data page again. So here at step number 3, you loaded the data page in asynchronous mode, but I don't know whether the data page is already loaded or not, because since this is asynchronous request, when it comes to the step number 4, immediately the data page was not present in the clipboard. Still, the child requester is trying to load the data page. Still, the child requester is trying to load the data page. Still, that request is not yet completed. But at step number 4, immediately you want to use the data page results. That's why Pega is very smart, right? That's why at step number 4, see property set loaded synchronously. See this one. Just click on this one. Queued had not started. Queue had not started, or the page was not queued. That's why loading synchronously. That's why loading synchronously. That means the data page was not present in the clipboard. That's why I am loading this data page synchronously. Why? Because there is such a requirement here. You have implemented the logic like that. You have implemented the logic like that. So then I think sometimes it is not the correct practice. You loaded the data page asynchronously, immediately you are using this data page here. I mean, you want to use the data page results. Then here, see, your main requester will continue to execute this data page, and one more child request is created by the Pega to load this data page asynchronously. What is the purpose of two times executing this data page? Try to understand. Here your main requester loaded synchronously means data page load begin, but here ADP load is begin. Just now I have explained, just now already shown this one. See, ADP load begin. So here also database execution started, there also database execution started. So then what is the purpose of loading this database asynchronously? That's why that's why I hope you understand step number 4. Database is not loaded at this time at step number 4 because queued. Database is load, database queued for loading. So separate child requester might be, the child requester may take some time, who knows, because since this is asynchronous, I don't know when this database execution will be completed. But unfortunately, immediately what you did at step number 4, you are trying to use the database results. That's why Pega identified, okay, the database was not yet loaded. The database was not loaded yet. That's why I will load the database in the synchronous mode. That's why it started loading. It started loading the database execution. See this one, database load is end and property set at step number 4 and continue. This is the difference between the asynchronous and synchronous. Now, sir, in that case, how can we avoid this? In that case, how can we avoid this? I will make one more change. See this one. I will make one more change. So very simple change. I have to wait for the data page loaded. I have to wait for the database load. That's it. I have to wait for the database load. So here, after load database, what I can do? Connect wait. Connect wait. That's it. So I can wait for 3 seconds or 2 seconds. You just give whatever the time. Here, this connect wait method in Pega, it will wait for 2 seconds or 3 seconds or how many number of seconds you want to give. I can give just 2 seconds. Now here, what is the pool ID? And here also there is a pool id. Now I will explain about what is pool id. Pool id, you can give it as any value. I am giving as a country data. Pool id here is responsible to track. Pool id is responsible to track the child requester details. To track the child requester details. Now here load data page, Pega will allocate one child requester to execute this data page. By using this pool id, you can grab or you can track that child requester details. Okay, this is fine. Now what about this connect wait? Here what is the pool id? You must pass the same pool id which you have used, in load data page. Why? Because here using this pool id, right, you want to wait until the data page is loaded. You want to wait till the data page is loaded. Then if you give this pool id, if you give this pool id, the child requester will come back to the main requester at this point. The child requester will come back to the main requester at this point by using this pool id. By using this pool id, so ultimately this pool id is used to track the asynchronous all the asynchronous rules which are queued under this pool. Under this pool id, here you have used this pool id country data at the load data page. That means if you want to track this child requester details which is processed by this data page, you must use this pool id. So at step number 4, I am using this pool id again, so that the pool ids are the requester details which are present in this country data. You can again track those, and you can, I mean, you want to track those request details. And also once that is completed, the main requester will be halted for 2 seconds, and the child requester will come back to the main requester at step number 4. The child requester will come back to the main requester at step number 4. Then fifth step will be loaded. Let's see now. Pool id, I just want to tell you one point. Pool id is nothing but to track the child requester details. To track the child requester details. Now I'm just clearing the clear data page. Submit, close. Now as usually I want to run my database execution. Action, run, trace, run. Now this time see what will happen. We'll see. Okay, page new, fine. Page new, fine. Load data page. Data page queued for load. Okay, fine, because a separate child requester will be executed to load the data page. Separate child requester will be executed to load the data page. Then after this, load data page step is completed 3. But see this one at step number 4, connect wait. At step number 4, connect wait, see, that means your main requester, this requester is halted or waited for 2 seconds. Why? Because to get the response, of the data page. That's why at step number 5, property set, see, the data page is not loaded in synchronous mode because your main request is waited for 2 seconds here. So that means meantime the child requester data page execution is completed, and you want to child request data page execution is completed, and the child requester is also come back to the main requester at step number 4, because you have given the same pool id. You have given the same pool id at step number 4. So then the data page is present in the clipboard. Then you can use the data page. See this one, Loaded asynchronously. Previously the data page was queued, had not present in the clipboard, etc. Now here loaded asynchronously, data page instance is found, data page instance is fresh, like this. Now I hope you understand the asynchronous database execution and synchronous database execution. You just simply mention in activity d underscore country list. Internal impact is the internal impact would be definitely different. Okay, so now the database queue loaded. Now connect wait. So you must use the connect wait method in the asynchronous database execution to load the database in asynchronously perfectly. You must use the connect wait. You must use the connect wait. Otherwise, okay, database just queued immediately. If you want to use the database results, again Pega main requester will execute the database in synchronously. Now here see the previous response and this response loaded asynchronously, previously loaded synchronously. Here it will not load the database again. Already here this connect wait, here the connect wait, here at the connect wait, here at the uh, connect wait is waited for the response of the child requester which is completed the database execution, because it halted for 2 seconds. Meantime the database execution is completed. See this one, database execution 0.00 0.080 before 2 seconds. Before 2 seconds the database loaded is successfully loaded before 2 seconds. Then as usually within 2 seconds connect wait halted for 2 seconds, the child request is completed. Once it come back to the main requester, then you can easily use the database data in the further steps. In the previous step we did not use the connect wait, that's why the database was loaded asynchronously but still not yet loaded, but immediately you are trying to use the database data. Okay, I hope you understand this video regarding the asynchronous data page. And apart from that also, you can use the data page in the sections, right, in the sections and drop downs. So those data page executions are in the synchronously only, those data page executions are in synchronous mode only, those data page executions are not in asynchronous mode. Okay. Okay, I hope you understand this video. Thank you so much.